Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Rose.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our Severance Season 2, Episode 9 reaction and review. Here we are with the after hours. We are right on the precipice now of the finale, and what an episode this was. I know that last week's was really polarizing.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here and being like it was my favorite episode of the season, because it definitely wasn't, but it was also an episode that I thought had some valuable info. But now we are really going somewhere plot-wise.
Yeah, we are back with our four, and they are definitely going in a lot of different directions
Yeah.
at this point. We've got Dylan seemingly quitting, but did he, or did he end up on the floor with the down red arrow, the testing floor, if
Yeah.
you will? We've got whatever's going on with Helly, her father actually being down on the severed floor. We have everything going on with Mark, where he's seemingly working with Cobell and he's in this birthing cabin now.
Yeah.
And then the biggest question, which is, are we ever going to see Irving again? And I hope you guys have your hard hats on for this, because I don't think that ending is what some out there might think that ending is.
There's a lot of really big swings in this episode, and I admire Severance for that a lot. I mean,
I
for
do
a
too.
show that is this good, you have to be bold. Like, this is why I love the season 1 finale so much. I don't want to say it's easier to do episodes like Chikai Barda, which had a lot of just really emotional stuff in it,
Yeah.
but I think with it, you're sort of able to create things a little bit more, whereas here, you have to pay off everything you've already set up, and that's really hard. They've taken some interesting swings. We, of course, have to talk first about that Irving stuff and what is happening to him, but before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because rest assured, we have a lot more Severance coming. Even if the finale is right around the corner, there's stuff to theorize about, there's stuff to dissect, and we're going to be here with you every single step of the way.
We are also covering Yellow Jackets and White Lotus. The Last of Us is coming up here at the channel as well. So hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 70,000 subscribers. We are really close. And thank you to everyone who is helping us get to that milestone. And also, if you want to help support us further, you can join our Patreon. We have a link for you below. Over there, we're covering exclusively The Pit, which is airing on Max right now. And upcoming is going to be the final season of Bosch Legacy, where we will have weekly reviews going up over there as well. And it is the only place that you can get that exclusive content. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate that so much.
Okay, let's take a quick poll here. How many people out there think that Irving and his dog, filled with love, are on the train to end up in Happyville? Anybody? Because that's definitely one of the ways that I think the show wants us to think, that Burt has helped him to be able to hide out and escape somewhere, and that he will go off heart filled with love. Okay, now how many people out there, I will already put up my hand, think that Burt put him on the Yellowstone train to the train station, where at the end of this, he's going to end up being murdered? Yeah. Okay, so this is what we know about this situation.
Yeah.
Irving comes home. Burt is in his place going through the chest that's filled with all this information. For me, it feels like tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
Clearly, Drummond has told Burt what is going on and is like, okay, Irving knows too much. We don't know why he knows this much. We don't know why he's digging into this. We have thought that he's a detective working for the cops, some sort of spy, something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what the reason is. Drummond knows that he has way too much insider information about Lumen, and that is not okay. Burt has said that he is a person that takes people on a drive and never to be seen again. And he doesn't really know what happens to them, and he's tried not to think about it, but that is his role, or a role. And as he's sitting there and he's reading through some of the stuff, some stuff about him, Irving tries to like maneuver around it the best he can, where he's like, listen, like, I was very clearly wrong about you. You are not a Lumen Company guy. This is not who you are. Burt does not answer either way, which tells me He is a Lumen Company guy. And he's like, let's go for a drive.
Yeah.
While he's on the drive, he lets him know this is kind of what my role was, taking people for a ride, never to be seen again kind of thing. He takes him to this train station, gets him the ticket. They have this gorgeous moment where Irving is like, I really wish that I could remember more of our relationship on the inside, because this is the first time in my life that I ever felt like I was truly seen and truly loved by somebody. And you can see that it is really eating up Burt inside as well. And I think the reason why is because he is sending him off to die. There is no way that Lumen is going to allow Irving, with all of this information on the outie world, especially after the scandal that happened, that Irving was part of, that was all over the news, that Lumen took all this time to cover up, is going to just let him go. Because if Burt does that and Irving says something to anyone or ever comes back or anything like that, Burt's the one that's going to be on the chopping block. And Burt's not going to end his own existence for anybody. We've seen that Burt can be very loving, but Burt also doesn't want to die himself. And he knows that he's the driver of people to go to the train station, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that moment where we have Irving being like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. And Burt saying like, I can't. He's not actually sending him off to have this better life with his dog. He is going to die. And I think this is the last time we're seeing John on the show.
Which breaks my heart because I love Totoro. I just think he's so
amazing,
incredibly good. I mean, he's famous and successful enough that he doesn't need Severance, but at the same time, I'm just like, can't we just
need him?
I know, we need him. I'll be honest here and take everybody inside my brain, because this is what I do with a lot of episodes of this show. Is I watch them multiple times before coming on to record, because sometimes my opinion changes. And I watched it the first time kind of having more of an optimistic viewpoint as to what could be happening, that okay, maybe he is going to go out there and be happy. But then, you and I talked a little bit, and then I watched it again with sort of that thought in mind. But there's just a big thing that just stuck in my head every single moment I saw these two together, and it is that theory we discussed in the past, that Irving may be a spy or a detective. And if that's the case, if he was to set off somewhere else to go and be happy, he's going to come back, and he's not going to, like, people in that profession, they're determined. It's not an easy job. You don't take that job and just quit when the going gets tough. So you
tell somebody.
It just feels like at this point, it makes the most sense that he's being sent off to his death, especially when you think about him basically trying to be like, I know you're not that guy to Burt, even though I think he knows that Burt probably is that guy. He's just trying to say whatever he can to kind of get another alternative, like him sort of saying, we can, I'm paraphrasing, but we can make this work, and trying to implore him before having to leave. I think he's trying to figure out some sort of way where he doesn't meet this fate, because I think he feels like this fate is probably possible, that either he's going to die, something else terrible is going to happen to him, who knows. But it's just also very curious that we never really go that far outside of the Lumen. I don't know if we want to call this the Lumen bubble, but we've seen Salt's Neck, I know, a town gravely affected by Lumen, but we don't really see that much of the outside world. And that kind of does raise this question of, okay, are we meant to assume that, okay, even if this is the end for Irving and he dies, like, are we ever actually going to definitively know that? Or are they just going to kind of leave everything up in the air?
I think this is it. I think us as the audience are going to be left up to interpretation. Does he go off and have this great life? For those of us that are more positive, you're probably going to be feeling like that's the ending I want. However, for me, I'm a more person that's kind of like sometimes positive, sometimes, not so positive. It depends on the show. It depends on the circumstances. And with Lumen being in so many countries, this last episode and seeing what happened at Salt's Neck and how devastated it was, that they have their hands in so many pies. We've seen it with the doctor at the fertility clinic and Salt's Neck. It's everywhere, that it just feels like with these specific events where we saw Drummond go in, see how much evidence and information Irving has. Then you're sending in Burt, who seems to be kind of like the cleanup guy
Yeah.
that deals with these types of situations. The fact that Burt and Irving do not remember their love and that relationship on the inside, they just know of it.
Mhm.
It makes it a different situation where Burt and Irving don't feel that love currently because it's their innies that felt that love, so they can make other decisions. Irving was still looking into the company.
Yeah.
Burt is still the cleanup guy. It is still the same on the outside. I just do not think that he lives. And I do not think that we are going to see an actual definitive answer on it. This is it. I think this is the last time we're seeing him on the show.
Dan Erickson, Ben Stiller, you will pay for
Oh,
this.
wow.
The Knicks are not going to win the championship now, Ben Stiller. I'm sorry.
You're going to get a ride to the train
Oh,
station.
okay. No, it's so well done. It's really emotional.
Really?
Like, this episode made me feel things that most of the rest of the season hasn't. I will also say this, because I mean, we're going to transition to another character who may or may not be continuing in Dylan, but the intensity of this episode, like the music choices, the pacing, like this felt like really heart pounding and almost nauseating in a way where I was just leaning in, feeling like I was going to be sick because I didn't know what was going to happen scene after scene.
Yeah, let's get into everything with Dylan.
Yeah.
Any Dylan, he's proposing to Gretchen. Gretchen has told Outie Dylan,
Yeah.
listen, I kissed your innie. He feels completely betrayed. He's like, I'm just going to go in and quit. I don't want any part of this. Innie Dylan is trying to be like, we can be together. Like, there's got to be a way. Gretchen's like, I can't.
Mhm.
It's just not possible. And it leads Innie Dylan to just quitting, where he's like, okay, now my innie experience has kind of been left empty. You know, the whole point is to go in here and not have to feel anything and not have to be, have it be complicated, that he
Yeah.
can just go in and do his work and go home, right? And that is no longer the case.
It's really interesting what they're doing with Annie Dillon at this point, because he's somebody who at first it seemed like he had value in his work, but then
Yep.
towards the end of last season he started to get little teases of what could be in his outside world, and it seems like for a while Milchek and Lumen, to an extent, they all had this as sort of a carrot, an incentive. But what happens when that carrot goes away and that incentive turns into something that's really, really bad? I think if there's a reason why there's going to be another confrontation with Drummond and Milchek down the road, it might be that, oh, you did this for Dylan and see how bad it is because now Dylan doesn't even want to be here. But
Yep.
then you're throwing on top of all this that, okay, Dylan's already heartbroken because, Gretchen is not going to want to continue seeing him.
Mhm.
He still has this information that Irving left behind with the hang in there poster, with what is happening with that door. And we see him make it very clear that he's going to resign. And we see that Milchek's not taking it the best. He's not feeling that great about it.
No, and he fills out this application of like,
Yeah.
this is my resignation. Yep, check
Yeah.
all the boxes. Okay, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And then we see him in front of that painting of the four heads and the
Yeah.
guy over with the sword, and he is covering one of those heads.
Yeah.
Right before he stands up, goes into the elevator, and then there's a bunch of cuts that makes it look like he is now going to what we're calling the testing floor.
Yeah.
He is not actually leaving. He is going somewhere else, probably to be reprogrammed so that he can continue to work on whatever it is he is specifically working on.
Yeah, like, what does Lumen love more than anything else? Like, the simplest answer is control. We saw in season 1 Helly try to quit, and they had this whole show of, oh, your Rowdy doesn't want you to quit. But they knew that her Rowdy wasn't going to want to quit because her Rowdy was selling it. Like,
Right.
that was easy to sell. But in this situation, Audi Dillon would probably be like, okay, that's fine. I'm just I'll go back and interview for more jobs at door factories or whatever else is going on.
Mhm.
Lumen is Hotel California at this point. Like, Dylan can't leave. They're going to find another position for him. I think having him be on the testing floor would be very, very telling and very, very dark. And also, if we're just going to think about this show from a meta level, there's going to be changes and there's going to be evolutions every season because that's the sort of show that this is. But I don't think they're wanting to live in a world where they're losing both Turturro and Zach Cherry in the same episode, like two of their main four actors.
I know, it was so weird watching Helly walk into the room and she's just alone. And
Yeah.
like, you know, we know Irving's not coming back. Mark is not back right now because he's trying to reintegrate. And now Dylan is just like, yeah, I guess I'm a jerk inside, I'm a jerk outside, and I'm quitting and I'm leaving. And just seeing her kind of by herself being like, well, I guess if I'm the last person standing, I'm gonna figure out what's going on with this left, left, right, left, right, left, right, and figure out what's going on until her father steps into the room and is just like, you tricked me. I'm like, what is going on here?
It's okay. A couple of things here. First and foremost, I'm going to throw a bone to all of you longtime Community fans for the movie that may or may not ever get made. But anyone else have like series finale of Community vibes with Helly in that scene where it's like, okay, she's the person who wanted to be there the least, and yet here is longer, presumably, than anyone else. We'll see
Yep.
what happens with Mark. But the thing with Jamie Egan that's making this all like so complicated in my head is, why is he saying this at this point? Is it because he's seeing a version of Helly that he doesn't really fully understand? Is he saying this in response to what Helly did with Milchick and he found out about that? Is it because he's seeing her memorize what's going on here? I
Mhm.
think that, if this is, any Helly that we're seeing in this scene, and we're seeing Jamie Egan be betrayed, even though he knows obviously that innies and outies are different people, I think he might be looking at this to go really psychological on everybody, that there's a part of innies that exists with outies. I think that's a part of the research that maybe they're trying to correct with Cold Harbor, where they can kind of make completely different people altogether. But I think it might be a sign to him that's like, okay, if any Helly is capable of this at this point in our research, then that means that maybe Helena is not as fully in lockstep with me as I would have imagined. And that's very hurtful to me, Mr. I am the boogeyman of Lumen and I want control over everybody.
Or this comes back to a theory that we talked about many weeks ago
Hmm.
of the idea is Helena actually going to be the person to take down Lumen.
Hmm.
And when he came in and was like, you tricked me,
Yeah.
are we seeing like a double, 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 double blindside where Helena is back in there again and that she's the person who's like, okay, I know a lot about this company,
Yeah.
obviously, but maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there are some things that are left behind that she doesn't know, or she wants to know what they know and she can't know on the outside about this or what's going on, and that there is information that we are seeing swapped around that we just haven't seen, but that it is actually happening, and she's being able to get this information out of Dylan about Irving, about the poster, that she's able to kind of start to dive in further. Are we seeing Helena back on the floor again? Like, I think it's really interesting that she had that talk with Dylan where
Yeah.
Dylan was just like, who knows who you are? Like, I don't know if you're back here again or Helena's back here again. You know, Mark didn't know. So, you know, great that Irving knew, but like, I don't know what's going on anymore and I don't care.
I do think that there is a lot with Helena that we have to take into account here of her as a multifaceted character, because obviously she's done some really, really bad things and things that are
Absolutely.
indefensible, but she's also somebody who clearly feels really alone, really isolated a lot of times. I think you have a good point that she probably doesn't know everything that's going on with Lumen all the time, because number one, she's not the big boss, and
No.
two, with the way that this company seems to operate here, I don't think we can just overlook the fact that she's a woman and she's probably being looked
Yep.
down on to some extent just because of that alone. So,
And she's severed, so they're using her on top of it. They've talked her into doing this, and she's like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's do this.
yeah, I think there's a good chance that she is going to be able to fight back at some point. The more that she knows and the more that she's able to sort of accumulate along the way. And that brings us into this whole argument back and forth with Helly slash Helena slash whatever and Milchick, where you sit back and be
Mhm.
like, okay, is she doing this just to be intentionally disrespectful because Helly is annoyed? Or is this all a further manipulation where she's just sort of thinking, I'm going to make Milchick even more unhappy in his position because that's going to make him even more willing to rebel down the line?
And rebel he did. It was so great to see this. I mean, we saw this exchange with him and Drummond where I could barely watch this scene as it was starting to unfold. I was like, if he doesn't tell him to eat a bag of grass, I just am not going to be able to sit through this. Like Milchek is somebody that
Yeah.
I've always been kind of on the fence about. I feel like, yeah, he's a company guy for a season, a little bit this season, but he is somebody who truly does seem to care about these four. He has said it before where, Irving, like, I think me and you're Innie, like, we're friends. Like, you're somebody I really like. And we've seen him in his 6-hour performance review
Yeah.
being like, yeah, like I don't work like Cobell does. I work in kindness, and I feel like that's a management style that's fine as well, where Drummond is telling him like, no, these innies are not people. You don't treat them like people. And Milchek's like, that's not how it works. And you've hired me, and that's where we are. So to finally watch him tell Drummond to go eat a bag of grass, I was so happy to see it happen, because I don't know if I would have been able to watch Milchek just get pulled apart like that. It was horrible.
So two things here. First and foremost, I'm very glad you found a YouTube approved way to say exactly what Milchek said to Drummond that achieves the same effect. Number two, I almost had a musical dance experience when this moment happened. I was so excited. I was so happy. I was happy. I was happy for Trammell, even though he's just an actor playing the part. I was just like, good for you. You get to be able to say this to this guy who I just hate with every fabric of my being. I think it's just such and this is kind of appealing to what makes Severance such a great show, is I think we've all had these sort of experiences. Well, maybe more people than me, because I haven't really had a lot of traditional jobs in my life. But I think a lot of people out there have had this moment where they want to basically tell their boss to eat a bag of grass. And Milchek, he knows that he can get away with this, because if they get rid of him, who are they going to bring in there to manage this floor, who's going to have the trust of however few innies are ultimately left at this point? But I think he's starting to realize, okay, you know what? I have a little bit more power. There's only so much that I'm going to be able to take here. What's Drummond going to do? And we're watching in this way Lumen come apart at the seams a little bit, and we're not fully there just yet. That's why we all still need to have a hard hat on here entering the finale, because I don't think everything is just going to be taken care of in some neat and easy way and everything is going to be better. But I think we're sort of planting seeds for a possible Milchek Helena alliance / Helly, where they're able to maybe do something and sort of move away from this whole Kier nonsense that this company is so obsessed with.
Yeah, and I mean, that also brings us to Miss Huang, who now is gone. She's finished her Wintertide Fellowship program, and now she's just being shipped off.
I think there's clearly a method to the madness in what Lumen / Kier is doing. I think there's a purpose for her being sent away and all of that. I think it's fair to wonder if we're ever going to see Miss Huang again, or was this whole storyline with her just a way to sort of show us how Lumen is training their younger generation and making them a part of this project? It's just, she is such a difficult character because she was always kind of out of reach, and we didn't see the humanity in her, I think, in the way that we have seen in Milchek, or even Helena, despite the terrible things that Helena has done.
And now she's at the Gunnel Egan Empathy Center, so maybe she will learn that.
I love that they just title these things these names that are completely
random nonsense,
dissociating from what I would think about anything they would be doing. But okay, as we get into Mark, and I mean, this is the funny thing, that this episode is so good that we're not even talking about the lead of the show and Adam Scott until 24 minutes into this. But this is why this hard hat has to be on at this point, is it's like, okay, we have some really interesting conversations between Mark and Cobell. We go to this whole birthing cabin. But at the same time, I think we learn in all of this that while we've seen Ragabi do some work on Mark, he's clearly not fully reintegrated. Like, we're still seeing an element of Innie Mark and Outie Mark here. So in the cabin, he becomes Innie Mark again, and he's dealing with all of this confusion, and he sees Cobell. I would love to sit here and think that, okay, Cobell is going to save Mark. She's going to take down Lumen. Everything is going to be better. But there's no evidence of any of this. The only thing we know about Cobell is that she wants revenge for the fact that she's getting kicked out of the very thing that she created.
Yes, and that's what that really feels like to me. Like I think her helping Mark is helping sort of end the program by ending Gemma. And I think it all feels like a trick, which
Mhm.
is just getting him back in there so that he will finish Cold Harbor and get Gemma out. Like she hasn't explained
Mhm.
that putting all the numbers in the box is bringing Gemma to the end, that
Yeah.
she's going to end up dead. None of that information is there. Mark even said it. Okay, we gave Cobell everything. She told us nothing.
Mm.
And that is true. That is where they are, where they're just blindly being led by Cobell to this birthing cabin where who knows what exactly is going to be told or said or shared or what is going to happen. I'd like to believe that Cobell is on a different path, but I don't believe it. I think it's her life's work is
Mhm.
the Severance program and her getting kicked off the floor before seeing Mark complete it. It's not about Gemma. She's not here to care about that. She doesn't care about Mark. I think she just wants to see this program finish so that she can walk away being like, it works. My idea is fulfilled. It is real. I feel validated. Cool. Let's move on. Mark won't know the difference anyways because he is severed.
That's the big thing about it. She can find a way to sell whatever she needs to sell after Cold Harbor at that point because she can make something up if Mark is still back in any form and she has sort of sorted all of this out. The important thing to remember, I think, with Cobell, and we've touched on this a little bit, but why she came up with this stuff in particular, and this is why I think episode 8, despite it being so polarizing, is so important, is that she's from this place where Lumen effectively destroyed the whole town, and she was
Mhm.
basically working from when she was a child. And I think so much of her ideas stem out of this idea of, oh, I just want to find a way to take away some of the pain. And I think she legitimately believes that what she has done with Severance is useful, that it's helping
Yes.
people, that she's getting work and getting productivity out of them, but she's also taking away this element of sorrow so that they have a period of time in their lives where they don't feel it. And then maybe in the times where they're not working, they're actually able to move on because they're just not as constantly inundated. I think she legitimately believes this. And this is why she would think that this would be a real way to help Mark, get him back in there, finish Cold Harbor. Gemma can be gone. She can
Yeah.
say, I tried to help you save Gemma. I tried to do all these things, but it was already too far gone. She can make up whatever she needs to make up. She can use Mark then in a different way. And I don't think it necessarily like resets things fully, but if there's a way to convince Mark at this point that, okay, Gemma really is gone for good, then he actually can move on. I think she is just out for herself. And we haven't seen those real moments where the light is shining down and she's just sort of like, I understand it now. I understand that what's going on here with Denny's is inhumane on some level. And I don't think she's had the same realizations as even Helena has.
Yeah, and I think she's playing into the fact that Mark is kind of reintegrated, but not exactly.
Yeah.
So the information that she did give to Mark, where she basically said, they don't know if he's completed the Cold Harbor file yet, and if he has, then Gemma's already dead.
Yeah.
That's enough to get him to trust her to
Yeah.
get to the birthing cabin, where if they get to any Mark doesn't know that information. And that's why it's such a mind game of whether or not where she's kind of really going with this. Like she can tell Outie Mark this, but if his reintegration hasn't brought him that he can bring that information to any Mark, then any Mark can go and finish the file.
Here is my biggest concern right now, and it's Devin, because Devin knows at this point a good bit about Cobell, knows a reasonable amount about Lumen. She's not severed. If this is all just a play by Cobell to get what she wants, what does she do with Devin after all of this is settled?
She takes a ride to the train station with Burt.
I know that's what I'm worried about at this point because she just does know so much, and
Way too much.
I think we're going to see progress in the finale, and I'm not here trying to be Mr. Doom and Gloom where it's just like everything is going to be bad, but
It's a tough show.
It
This
is
is about really dark stuff.
It's a tough show about really, really dark stuff. And I just think we're going to be in a situation moving forward where we will see some progress, maybe with people like Helena, maybe somebody like Milchick, but there's no indication this is the final season. It's certainly not going to be. So I just think we're going to see a step forward and then probably also a step back.
Yeah.
But that's where we are coming out of Severance season 2, episode 9. Do you guys really think that Irving is gone? What do you think that means for the rest of the show? What do you think is going to happen with Dylan? Let us know. Hit that subscribe button because in addition to more Severance, we have a lot happening with the White Lotus, with Yellow Jackets, with The Last of Us on the way, and you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description. We are covering exclusively there in video form The Pit, and then also Bosch Legacy is coming. Thank you so much. We'll see you here next time.